Folks, the Stanley Cup Playoffs start day. And round one, the Carolina Hurricanes are taking on the Boston Bruins. In today's episode, I am joined by Ian McLaren of Locked On Bruins.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'd like to thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Monday afternoon and your first listen of the Stanley Cup playoffs. As I said in the cold open in today's episode, I am joined by Ian from Locked On Bruins. We preview this matchup between the Hurricanes and the Bruins. It's been the third series between these two teams since the 2019 playoffs. So we've seen a lot of each other in recent memory, but this is the first crossover we've had with Locked On Bruins. So I do hope you enjoyed that. But in the meantime, make sure you follow Locked On Hurricanes on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at JaredEllis_96. Rate the show 5 stars on whatever streaming platform you are listening on, and subscribe to the show on YouTube, and I will not keep you longer. Enjoy this crossover series preview with Locked On Bruins. All right, Ian. So I got an important question for you because I've talked about this multiple times throughout the year, but it feels like over the past, 2 seasons, but this one especially, it feels like we're in that kind of era, like the changing of the guard type thing, because for so long, in the Eastern Conference, you had Boston, Pittsburgh, and Washington. Those were the 3 top dogs, and for better part of a decade, it actually longer, if you really think about it. But it feels like this year, and again, the past couple years, you've kind of really seen that start to change. But this year, with the playoffs and just where everyone fell, it felt like it really is that time. Your Bruins, Penguins, Capitals, they're getting older. The Bruins and Capitals are your 2 wild cards. The Penguins squeaked in at that 3 spot in the Metro, given all the teams had over 100 points of the season, so it's not like they just got into the playoffs or anything like that, or they had a bad season. But do you feel that is kind of coming to fruition now?
I mean, yeah, it certainly seems like it. Those 3 teams probably, they've been led by guys who have been in the league since before, in Boston's case, before the shootout era began. Ovechkin, Crosby came in kind of right at that time, Malkin as well. So, yeah, these guys have been around for like 20 almost seasons now, and just time catches up to you, right? And these teams have been led by Ovechkin, Crosby, Malkin, Bergeron. Those guys, we've already seen a bunch of 2003 draft picks retiring lately. I think Eric Stahl was in that one, the longtime Hurricanes guy, and he's been gone for a couple of years now. So, yeah, just the way the sport evolves and cycles of success, it's only a matter of time before these teams maybe take a backseat to some others that have been building here for a few years, like the Hurricanes, who, been building for quite a few years now and really seem to be on the cusp of success. Hopefully not this year, but maybe next year.
And you mentioned that cycle of success, and the Bruins are an older team. Do you feel they still have enough left in the tank to, one, not only win this series, but have a good run again? Do you feel that that is a legitimate possibility, or is that just wishful thinking?
No, I think it is. You look at Patrice Bergeron. There's some questions about whether he's going to play beyond this season. But if you look at his numbers this year, his defensive numbers, he's been putting up like the best performance of his career, arguably. I think he's going to win the Selke Trophy. He's going to break the record set by Bob Gainey of four wins. And he is playing as good as he ever has, which is pretty scary in some ways. And they have been able to, there were so many new faces that came in for the Bruins this year. New goalies, a few new defensemen, a few new forwards. Kind of a mixed bag early on, but Bruce Cassidy, around that COVID break, he really found a good mix. And I think that the way the Bruins have been playing, I think they're a top 5 team since January 1st in the NHL. And I think it's still possible that they could be able to make a deep run this year. Their underlying numbers are all really strong. They're a top 5 team when it comes to, shot attempts, high danger chance, differential, expected goals, all those fancy stats. So I think they could very well, they're coming in as an underdog, but I think they do match up pretty well against the Hurricanes, despite being wildly outmatched during the regular season in the 3 games that they did play.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they're outscored, I think, 16-1 or something.
That's
like
right,
that. You got 1 goal on us in the regular season.
Yeah.
But I saw this stat earlier a couple days ago, and I thought it was really interesting because with this series now, the Bruins become the team that the Hurricanes have played the most in the playoffs since they've relocated to Raleigh. And if I remember correctly, it's 5 times we played each other. And obviously, the ones, way back, that really has no bearing, on this series. I guess you would say it's just a fun little fact. You guys were the first team we ever played in the playoffs when we were still in Greensboro, when PNC Arena was still getting built.
Yeah.
But you look at the 2 most recent ones, the 18-19 conference final and then the bubble. I don't know if you want to call that the first round, second round, because you had the qualifying round as well.
Yeah.
It feels like that was the first round.
Yeah,
right. But, in those series, the Bruins were the more experienced, frankly, better team. And now the Hurricanes have, years under their belt. Well, they're young guys, their core, they have years under their belt. They have a good mix of veteran talents, like Jordan Staal, like Jacob Slavin, like Ian Cole, Derek Stepan. They have some really good veteran guys, and you have your core guys like Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, Teuvo Teravainen, Jacob Slavin again, but and then you also have your rookies there as well. Like Seth Jarvis, it's his rookie year. You have Pyotr Kochkov, which we'll see what happens with him in the playoffs. If he's going to play, or Freddie Andersen's going to be back. But it feels like the Hurricanes, they're now like ready to get over that hump that is the Boston Bruins in the playoffs. Many years ago, it was the New Jersey Devils that they couldn't get past. They couldn't get that monkey off their back. But this year, it feels like, the way they played each other in the regular season, I feel, given playoffs are a different breed entirely, of course. But it feels like the Hurricanes, they have what it takes this year. And, coming from the opposition, how do you feel the Hurricanes fare in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with, like, these cycles, right? Is it going to be the Bruins with all this experience, having beat the Hurricanes a couple times recently in the playoffs, kind of knowing how to get the job done and doing it again? Or is it going to be the Hurricanes, so much promise, so much talent, kind of finally breaking through it? It's a big conversation, heading into the final night of the regular season. There was a big, would the Bruins move up to third in the Atlantic, play the Maple Leafs? Same conversation in Toronto for the Leafs fans, like wanting to get past the Bruins, who beat them a couple times as well. So it's going to be super interesting. I think the Bruins, they didn't match up well at all with the Hurricanes in the regular season. That was a bit of a different team than we're seeing heading into the playoffs. They did make some additions at the trade deadline. They are really, I mentioned before that Bergeron uncertainty. They're really kind of built right now to do whatever they can to try to win one more time, or at least do a deep run one more time, at least for Patrice Bergeron. And, whether or not they can, looking back at those other playoffs, there's a lot of guys who are missing from those rounds, the core guys that have been there for the Bruins. Basically, it's only Bergeron and Brad Marchand that are still around. Chara's gone. He was in that bubble series and the conference finals, obviously. Torrey Krug's gone. Tuukka Rask's gone. David Krejci's gone. Those are all guys that helped them, that were integral to their success. And now you're relying on some other guys that have been brought in. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those guys step up and whether or not they can get the job done. It's kind of a toss-up at this point. But the way the Bruins have been playing heading into this final stretch and their underlying numbers, I do think that they can get the job done against the Hurricanes again this time around.
Yeah, it's going to be a very fun series to watch for sure. There's obviously a lot of question marks on both sides.
Yeah.
But if you're a betting man on this stuff of this series, your underlying numbers for the Bruins, for the Hurricanes, whatever it may be, betonline.net has you covered. Betonline.net is, of course, the number one spot for all of your sports betting news and info, from league reviews to esports and more. And BetOnline, they're here just in time for the hockey playoffs, basketball playoffs, start of the Major League Baseball season, like I said, esports, and so much more. BetOnline.net has you covered for all of the action heading into this playoff series, whether it's how many goals Sebastian Aho is going to score, how many assists Teuvo Teravainen is going to get because he is an assist machine, or if you're a Boston Bruins fan, what is Patrice Bergeron going to do? What is Brad Marchand going to do? BetOnline.net has you covered for whatever it may be. So go check out BetOnline.net on your computer or mobile device right now. BetOnline.net, where the game starts.
Very nice, Jared. Very nice. So let's shift the conversation to the first, let me remind or thank everybody for making Locked On Bruins and Locked On Hurricanes their first listens every day. Keep subscribing. Check out the Locked On Now podcast. I'm assuming we're going to keep going with that through the playoffs. You can get nightly recaps from all the local hosts in the playoffs. My big question for you, Jared, heading into this series, is the Hurricanes goaltending. I know there's some injury concerns there with Freddie Andersen. The Bruins have experience going up against Andersen in the playoffs when he was a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and certainly were able to get the better of him in Game 7s. Is he going to be ready for the series? He should mention he's been excellent this year. I think he'll be a Vezina Trophy finalist at the very least, possibly a winner. It seems like a big loss if he can't play at least, in Game 1. what's his status and what's kind of the backup plan for the Hurricanes if he can't go?
So as of right now, there hasn't been an official word on him. There's been talked about that he's going to be ready to go, but there hasn't been an official word coming out from the team. So looks like he'll be ready to go, but we don't know for sure.
Okay.
So that's one I think we haven't heard any official word right now, and we're recording this on Sunday afternoon, so maybe we'll see something later tonight, early tomorrow morning. But honestly, if we don't hear anything, probably by lunchtime tomorrow, I would probably say he's going to be a no-go for at least game one. And as far as the backup plan goes for that, Antti Raanta, he is healthy and ready to go. He went down with injury as well, but he's ready to go. And he played in the regular season finale, had a great game. And we also have Pyotr Kochkov, and our rookie that came up from the AHL. I think he's finally starting to settle in. His first two games, I think nerves were kind of getting there and getting the best of him. He obviously won those games, but I think is a little nervous maybe, because it's a big jump, from the AHL to the NHL. And of course, if you go back to the beginning of the year, he was in the KHL. So he's had a very busy year this year, and I think nerves may have gotten to him a little bit there. But you look at his third game against the New York Rangers, absolutely dominating that team, and it being a really, really good team, not a no knock against the bottom of the league teams, because they are NHL teams. They're talented to some extent, but it was against a playoff team, a top level team, a team that was that close to making a run at winning the Metro Division. He really, was coming into his own. He looked like he was really settling in, and I think should he get a start or two in the playoffs, I think we'll be all right. I think. Defense-wise, they may have to step it up a little bit. It's not Antti Raanta, it's not Freddie Andersen in there. But I think we'll be all right. You look at last year, Alex Nedeljkovic, rookie goaltender stepping in, going off last year, having better numbers than your Vezina winner. But he was a Calder finalist. And then if you go back years and years, rookie goaltender that won us the Stanley Cup, Ham Ward, it's not unheard of it for it to happen if a rookie just go off. And I would like Freddie Andersen to come back, be ready to go just for that security blanket because of how good he's been this year. But at the end of the day, I think if we don't have him to start this series, I think we'll be all right.
I also wanted to ask about kind of expectations for the Hurricanes this season. We've talked about like these cycles of success. This current Hurricanes team hasn't quite been able to kind of break through, although they did obviously go to the conference finals in 2019. But, I look at a team like the Maple Leafs up here. They have a lot of expectations. If they falter again, kind of heads could roll per se. If the Hurricanes aren't able to beat the Bruins, would that be seen as a massive failure, or would it be just kind of accepted as another step along the growing process, or kind of what are the expectations for this Hurricanes club?
So I think it's not going to be like Toronto whenever they lose in the first round. It's not going to be like that because the Raleigh media market is very, very different than the Toronto one. And the Hurricanes did set franchise records for wins and points this season. You also have Freddie Andersen likely going to be at Vezina Finals. You had Freddie and Antti Raanta win the Jennings Trophy this year. So I don't feel it would be regarded as an all-out failure if they were in a bigger market like Toronto, New York, or something like that. But on the flip side of that, the expectations have shifted. Because it's not, we're just trying to get in the playoffs. We haven't made the playoffs in a decade. We're just trying to get back in. It's not that anymore. This team. They've established themselves as a consistent playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a team that is just trying to scrape in. And you look at the moves they made this offseason. They're pressed up against the salary cap this year. Because for so long with old ownership and old GM, cheap as hell. They did not want to spend money on players. And, it was hard to get talent here. And whenever you had a good run, it was because your players played good. But this year, you've developed your young core. You've developed Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, Teuvo Teravainen, Jacob Slater. You developed all of your homegrown talent, and then now you've brought in other key pieces to help get you to that next level. You brought in, veteran guys that have cup experience, like Derek Stepan, like Ian Cole. You brought in those guys, and you went out and made a splash with goaltending. I had to eat my words with the goaltending this year. I was not a fan of trading Alex Nedeljkovic because so long they struggled to find a long-term answer in net. Once Cam Ward's prime ended and injuries were catching up with him, he was just getting overplayed, having to play through injury, and he just wasn't looking like the Cam Ward of old. And they struggled to find that. Scott Darling didn't work. Eddie Lack didn't work. The list goes on and on.
Right.
Yeah, you had Peter Mrazek, Curtis McElhinney, James Ryan. Yeah, those guys, but they were never a long-term answer. You had Ned, who was a guy you drafted, developed in the AHL. He came up, Calder finalist, and absolutely killed the season. Then you go out and trade him, and he signs for less in Detroit than what he was asking for here, which wasn't much either.
Yeah.
So I was, kind of the feeling, keep Ned, maybe bring in one of the guys, maybe bring in Freddie or Ronta, and, keep, Ned, as your long term.
Right.
To carry the franchise. But, they traded him, they made their moves that they made, and now this year, you got a Vezina finalist and a Jennings winning tandem. So I think, you look at all that, the Hurricanes, their money ball tactics, I guess you would call them.
Yep.
They worked out this year, and they're expected to make a run with all the moves that they made, and it didn't blow up in their face. They're going to have to make a run. They got to get past the Bruins. I think that's a really big expectation because of what we said earlier, how the Bruins knocked them out in the bubble, knocked them out in the conference final, and having been that team that the Hurricanes can never really get past,
Right.
I think that's a big expectation. I really think that this team, I really think they need to make it to at least the conference final.
Oh,
I
wow.
do, because I feel if they get knocked out in the second round again, like they did last year, while it wouldn't be viewed as an all-out disappointment and a failure of a season, I do feel that at that point they didn't meet expectations.
Right.
Because the guys have said, Jordan Martin said the other day that the expectations are different now.
Right.
They're expected to go on these runs, not get bounced in the first two rounds.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's definitely going to be a fun series to watch, I think. And before we talk about some swing players or key matchups to watch, a quick word about Built Bar. Summer's coming. And this summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. You can throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so that you're fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars is they're healthy and delicious. You don't have to sacrifice good tasting food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both. And it's so easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. They have so many delicious flavors like banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, so many more. The thing with Built Bar is they make it delicious first and then make it healthy. I don't know how they pull it off, but they do it every time. They're all delicious. New flavors coming out. So check out Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. at built.com. Jared, I wanted to ask about, we're going to talk about like guys who could swing the series or things like that. I wanted to talk, I don't know if you were going to mention him at all, but about Max Domi, a guy that the Hurricanes picked up before the trade deadline. I think like right at the trade deadline. Do you think he was a guy that was picked up perhaps with the Bruins in mind, some guy that could get under their skin or kind of mix things up that way? The Hurricanes so talented, so loaded, not necessarily known for kind of mixing it up per se. Do you think Domi might be able to fill that role?
Yeah, I do think he can fill that role. That really until as of the last week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, I wasn't a fan of the trade. I felt he was meh at best, and he did more harm than good when out on the ice.
Right.
But during these past like week and a half, 2 weeks of the regular season, I feel he really started to play a lot better. I don't know if it was learning the system, getting comfortable here, or what it may be, but he did start to improve his game, which was good, especially heading into the playoffs, because whenever they brought him in, they didn't ship anyone out. So, rather than having the one extra forward that you had all season long because you kept Seth Jarvis in the NHL rather than sending him back to juniors, now you have two extra ones. And they've been pretty adamant about having Domi in the lineup. Again, even if he had been doing more harm than good, they're still keeping him in the lineup for some reason. Given Rod and all of them, they know more than I do. They know more than you do. So, but it didn't feel like it was the smart decision, but they really started getting hot at the right time. Same with Domi included. And I do think he can bring a level of grit and physicality that I think will be very necessary in this series, because I think we all know, I know, our listeners know, this series is going to get nasty.
Yeah.
Because of that playoff history that these teams have. And then you look back to the regular season, how the Hurricanes, frankly, embarrassed the Bruins during the regular season. That emotion is going to be there for you guys.
For sure.
And that's going to be something that kind of drives the Bruins, I feel. And I think Domi is going to be there to help kind of get under the Bruins' skin in the last game against the Islanders. After the final horn sounded, him and who was it? I forget who it was that he got into it with, but an Islanders player was going after him after the final horn sounded, and Domi was just smiling and laughing the entire time. So, I do think he's going to help in that regard. I do just hope he kind of cleans up his game, not in the fact that he's a dirty player or anything like that, but don't make stupid passes. And don't make dumb plays. That's my big thing with him, because that was something he was doing, and we're gonna have to see how it goes. But I think there's one matchup that I'm really looking forward to in this series.
Yeah,
they do not like each other. You look back to last year's playoffs when he was in Nashville, and that is Erik Haula and Martin Necas.
Oh wow,
they do not like each other.
Yeah,
I don't think they got along when Eric was here in Raleigh, but whenever they were playing last year against Nashville in the playoffs, those two were going at it all series long.
Interesting. I forgot about that.
Same in the regular season as well last year. Those guys, they were constantly going at each other. Heck, this year as well during the regular season. That's going to be a very interesting matchup, and I think if Haula can really make Necas mad and I think that is something that could simultaneously work in your favor or really hurt you. Because, if he gets mad, maybe he gets too emotional, makes a bad play or something like that. Or he just says, screw it, I'm going to go down and score a goal or something like that and just, go off.
I forgot about that. I forgot that, about that matchup and that kind of angst that's there that could make for some good entertainment as well. Haula has become very important for the Bruins this season, filling in on that second line center role, and he could be a guy that turns the series. I think a guy for the Bruins that a lot of Bruins fans have been down on all season long that could make a difference is actually Nick Felino. You know, he was signed for a couple years, $3.8 million, very low impact offensively this season. But the last couple weeks, you saw him really kind of doing those extra things that make you successful in the playoffs, like those extra efforts to dig the puck out, get it out in front. And for me, he's a guy that is later on in his career. He's looking to win. You know, Bergeron specifically reached out to him to bring him to Boston. And I think he could be a guy who becomes kind of a different player in the playoffs than what we saw in the regular season. And I really think that, it's easy to say, like, Taylor Hall could be a guy that turns the series or David Pastrnak. But I think it's going to be kind of those third, fourth line guys that are really going to make the difference in the series either way for each team.
Because the Hurricanes' third line, Nino Niederreiter, Jordan Staal, and Jesper Fassa has been their
crazy.
best line all season long. And I think, our key guys are heating up at the right time. Sebastian Aho, Vincent Trocheck, Seth Jarvis, Andrei Svechkov, all heating up at the right time, which is great. But like you said, your third, fourth line guys, I think, I think that those are going to be a really big deal. Again, our third line's best line all season long. And then, you look at our fourth line. You brought up Max Domi earlier. He tends to be at his best kind of down there rather than playing on, like, the top two lines. So I think they're kind of going to keep him there. You have Jesper Kotkaniemi. Again, a guy that was heating up at the right time. And you got Derek Stepan, Steven Lawrence, and all those. I think those depth guys are really going to be big. I totally agree with you there. And, of course, the top guys, of course.
Yeah. I think a key matchup for me, I think the goaltending is obviously going to be key, but I look at, like, Charlie McAvoy and Tony DeAngelo on your end. Like, which guy? Both guys have the ability to play obviously solid defense, to play or chip in offensively. I think whichever one of those two players is able to put it together at both ends of the ice, that's going to be a huge differentiator between these two teams. They're both kind of in the maybe not Norris, finalist conversation, but they're both top 10, possibly top 5. I think that's going to be a huge matchup. Which guy can kind of limit the opposition offensively and also kind of turn things around and be a positive at the other end of the ice. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, I agree with you there, Tony. He's had a really good season offensively. I'm not a fan of him, for off-ice reasons, but on ice, strictly on ice, he has had a good season offensively. But what worries me there is his defense, because he has had some pretty critical lapses. And when I've went back to really since it happened was when we were in Pittsburgh. He just kind of abandoned Sidney Crosby.
Oof, yeah.
And then Crosby just went down, scored a goal. And just stuff like that. And then there's been other lapses, where he could have, reached out a little bit more and potentially blocked a shot, but he didn't. Little things like that. Almost Russell Westbrook-esque, defensive effort sometimes. Not that bad. But again, that's a bit extreme. But he could be better defensively. But I do think one thing that also works in his favor in that regard is that he's also paired with Jacob Slavin, who is arguably the best defensive defenseman in the entire NHL. So I do think that is something that will help Tony as well and maybe hide some of his shortcomings in this series because of just how good Jacob Slavin is as well.
Yeah, that's huge for sure. I think that kind of brings us to the prediction part of the podcast. What are you thinking in terms of how the series is going to go?
So obviously, I'm gonna say the Hurricanes are gonna win this series, but I don't think it'll be a sweep or anything like that. I think this is probably a 6-game series. I could see it going 5 games. If the Hurricanes are able to replicate what they did in the regular season.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, I feel that the Bruins, they're gonna remember that regular season series and how they got outscored 16-1 or whatever it was. I think they're going to remember that. And I think that is going to be something that gets them at least 1 win in this series. But I think at the end of the day, the Hurricanes, they are a better team than the last time we played each other in the playoffs. And especially if we get Freddie Andersen back. Right. I think one thing that'll help him, not only in this series but just playoffs in general, is that he has a much more balanced and better team in front of him. Because Toronto was always one that was kind of built for the regular season, not the playoffs. Right. The Hurricanes are a very balanced team, and they are at their best when they're playing a good team game. Everyone up and down the lineup is chipping in. Right. And they have a much better defense in front of them than in Toronto. So I think, if he's back, I say, maybe a 5-game series. If he's not, I would say a 6-game.
Right. This is a bit tough for me. I'm going to, be a homer and take the Bruins as well. If you look at the regular season matchups, it'd be easy to say, like, Carolina in 4. One of those games they played terribly was that Willie O'Ree night as well, which was pretty embarrassing. I think Tuukka Rask was in net one of those games. Obviously, he wasn't at full health. I think if you look at the Bruins in a vacuum against the Hurricanes, no chance. But if you look at the Bruins kind of as a whole, how they've been playing since January 1st, adding Hampus Lindholm on the back end, and their underlying numbers, I think they do have a chance in this series, especially if Andersen is not well. And, looking back at 2019, even 2020, I think the Bruins' depth up front is even better than it was in those 2 years. The decision to move Pastrnak to the second line. They have 2 kind of number 1 lines right now, and some good balance on the third and fourth lines. I think where it could turn is if Carolina takes advantage of Boston's third pairing defensively, which not incredibly strong with Derek Forward and Connor Clifton. I think that's a huge area of concern for the Bruins. But going back to kind of that experience and Bergeron playing at the top of his game, I think he arguably the best player in the series on either side. And I'm going to say Bruins in 6. Let's go with 6. They're going to win on home ice. But that's a very, very I wouldn't be surprised either way if it's like a sweep, go 7, anything in between. I think this series is pretty good. I wanted the Bruins to kind of face Carolina just to get out of the Metro or the Atlantic bracket, going through Toronto and then Florida. That's a nightmare. But I think it's going to be a fun series, and I think you reminded us that it could be a very chippy series as well, which is always fun. The NHL wants to build these rivalries in the divisions, and Boston Carolina has somehow become a bit of a sneaky rivalry as well with all these playoff meetings recently. So I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be pretty fun either way.
Yep, I agree. I 100% agree. I think it's going to be a really fun series, and I think it's really going to be one that is kind of going to be one that I think a lot of people, as of right now, they're like, that as a Carolina series, they're winning that one. But
Right.
I think once it gets going, that series is going to turn some heads because of again the history of this team's in the
for sure.
playoffs, the history in the regular season, that emotion carrying over.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be some really good matchups here. I think it's going to be one that a lot of people, once it gets going, are going to be tuning into.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jared, this was great. Maybe we will catch up. Say if it's like 2-2 after 4 games, we should definitely check in again and tee up the rest of the series. But in the meantime, people can be sure to find all the latest on the Bruins at the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. Follow me at Ian C. McLaren, and remind everybody where they can find you as well, Jared.
Yep, you can find the show on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes, myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And the show is, of course, going to be available on all streaming platforms, wherever you're listening to this, and on YouTube.
Exactly. All right, well, let the better team win. I'm excited to see how things shake out beginning tonight, Monday, Game 1 in Raleigh. It's gonna be pretty fun. Thanks a lot, Jared. That was fun.
It was fun as well. Thank you.